It's time for a Senior Citizens Forum. I'm Janice Wood, your host, and a Senior Citizens Forum is being sponsored by Benefits for You Too Insurance Services, where they provide Medicare insurance, Medicare Advantage plans, Medicare supplemental plans, and prescription drug plans for people that are 65 years of age and older, and for some people under the age of 65 that meet certain approved medical conditions for Medicare. Today, we're not going to be talking about Medicare. We're going to be talking about invisible conditions, or lots of people may know it as invisible disabilities. So what are invisible disabilities? It can be a learning disability. It can be an emotional disability. It can be a medical disability. It's something that you're not aware of or can't even imagine the person having. It's something that we don't really, we can have. I have a invisible disability, which is a learning disability. And the young man I'm having on here today on the Senior Citizens Forum is Jeff Pearson. And Jeff has his own show, which is called The Invisible Condition. And if you look behind Jeff, hi, Jeff, okay? He also has another show, which we're going to talk about. It's called the Invisible Condition University. And I met Jeff through a class that I attend every other week for guest hosts. And I found out that he was doing this, and I could really relate to it, those disabilities. And as for myself and relating to it, I found out I had this learning disability when I was 40 years old. And Jeff and I talk about that in detail on his show. And I will let you know when that is going to be shown very soon. Okay. And I wanted to talk about this on our show because if you're a senior or you have family that has people that have hidden disabilities or invisible disabilities, I think the information that we're going to have from Jeff and what he can provide you is invaluable. Jeff is someone I hope to have on the show in the future, because I think this is going to be a great subject. And I hope, how you live with it, how you can help somebody else that has it. So Jeff, a little bit about you. I know you have your own show on E360 TV. And if anybody knows all the outlets that I'm on, you can find Jeff on all those same outlets, okay? But Jeff was born with something that is called hydrocephalus. And if I pronounce that wrong, you can correct me.
Okay.
Correct me. I know I said that wrong. I can tell by
Hydrocephalus.
Okay.
It's close. You were close. Hydrocephalus.
Hydrocephalus. Okay.
There you go.
And the little bit of research I did it is amazing that Jeff is even here with us, because most people don't survive it. They don't. Getting to age 2 is a miracle, okay? So Jeff, you are a miracle, and you're providing information that I think is in the miracle stages, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. So Jeff is obviously, he has survived this, but he survived this with many operations. He, yes. He's a functioning I want to say functioning. I don't know if that's the correct word. High level functioning person. Okay. He's married. He has children, and he has to support his family like all the rest of us, along with his wife. Okay. And and at some point in time, I want to have his wife come on the show because she can talk about what it's like to be the caretaker.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
But for this particular show, I wanted to focus on with Jeff, um, his experience with this, how he came up with the Invisible Conditions TV show, and how he and his come up with his new show, which is Invisible Conditions University.
Yeah.
So Jess, let's get started. So let's talk
All
about
right.
how you made it through your childhood, how you're going through adulthood, and how you feel that you need to share this information and help others.
All right. Well, thank you for having me on the show, by the way. This is awesome. I'm excited. You were fantastic on my show. And by the way, everybody, that show, that episode will air on September 24th at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. So on E360 TV, and then our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, and anywhere else Janice wants to
Right. Well,
share it. So yeah, yeah. September
now
24th at 10 a.m.
that's
Mountain Time.
and I'm going to be on his show on October 24th, and
September 24th.
we're going to, excuse me, I'm already into October. On September 24th, that's my learning disability right there, and into a couple of days later, on the 26th of September at 2 o'clock, we will be showing this on E360 TV and all the same outlets that Jeff just mentioned.
Love it. Yeah, that's great. That's going to be awesome. So thank you. Yeah, so hydrocephalus is the condition that I was born with. So what happened, just little anatomy lesson here for those who may not know what the heck that funny sounding word means. Hydrocephalus is a condition, basically that word translates to water on the brain. Hydrocephalus, water on the brain. And what that means is people with hydrocephalus, my case in particular, was so when you're well, let me start here. The human brain has ventricles. The human brain is always producing something called cerebral spinal fluid. It's a fluid that kind of your brain kind of floats around in that fluid within your skull, and it cushions your brain against, so it doesn't bang against your skull. And it's always being produced, and so it has to go somewhere. So it on a daily, minute by minute basis, it's draining down the ventricles that are already built into your brain, draining down those ventricles, going ultimately down your spinal column to lubricate your spinal column, and then it just kind of reabsorbs into your system. That's how it's normally supposed to work. So those with hydrocephalus, and me in particular, one of those ventricles was actually blocked, and so it was not allowing that fluid through. And so when that happens, it starts to store the fluid in the skull, which can be problematic, because if enough fluid stores up in the skull, it can actually surround the brain, compress the brain, and actually cause brain damage, and eventually can actually kill you if you don't address it. So in my case, I was born via emergency C-section, and they, everything was fine with the birth. I came, everything was good. And then they did the certain measurements, right? They length and weight. And one of the measurements they do is a head circumference like this. And so they sent, everybody went home. Congratulations. There you go. Came back for the 2-week checkup, as is very customary to do. And they did all the same measurements, length and weight and all the things. And one of them was the head measurement again. And that measurement, that head circumference measurement, was just slightly larger than it should have been. And so the doctor said, all right, Mom and Dad, don't panic. It's probably nothing. Let's just do a CAT scan and, CT scan, see what's going on. And that's when they discovered that I had a ventricle that was completely blocked. So one of those ventricles that was supposed to be allowing fluid through was completely blocked. And so the solution in 1977, when I was born, is very similar to the solution now. And that is to do brain surgery and install something called a shunt. And so that's what they did. At 2 weeks old, I went under the knife for brain surgery, and they drilled a hole in my skull back here and threaded a little catheter through there to a little tube there to draw that fluid out of the brain. And there's a shunt or a pump called a shunt attached to that. And then there's a cord attached to the shunt, and that runs down along my neck here and kind of down around the back of my abdomen, and it kind of just reroutes that fluid somewhere. It's kind of like an artificial ventricle. And so that was my first introduction to surgery, was brain surgery at 2 weeks old. And so far, I'm 47 now. So far, I have had about 15 surgeries related to hydrocephalus. 7 of those are brain surgeries, and I've had 4 of those brain surgeries in the last 10 years. So this condition, you're kind of destined for a few brain surgeries. So
Yeah.
that's, in a nutshell, that's how we started here in the world. Is that was Jeff's introduction to the world, was brain surgery.
I mean, growing up as a child and as an adult, how does that affect you emotionally?
You know, I credit this to my parents, who are amazing. They, you know, I never really, first thing I'll say is I never really had any trouble, any problems, any medical issues, anything like that until I was about 36. That's when, we'll get into that in a minute, but that's when things started to kind of get complicated. But up until 36, I really had, there was nothing. There was nothing to worry about. I had 3 brain surgeries, and several other different surgeries that were related to the hydrocephalus, but all of them turned out great. All of them, none of them left me with, really serious, side effects or lasting effects or anything. So I had a really normal childhood. And I had, and my parents were amazing in that they never once said, you can't do that because you have a condition. You shouldn't do that because you have that thing in your head. You shouldn't do that because of, none of that. It was, do what you want. You are a kid, be a kid. You are not sick. Yeah, you have a device, in your head, but that doesn't affect you right now. So be a kid, do your thing. And so I did. I skateboarded as a kid. I still snowboard to this day. I love snowboarding. 30 years later, I mean, I started snowboarding 30 years ago, and I still do it today. They did steer me away from things like football, soccer, things where you're continuously banging your head against things. That was discouraged. They said, well, how about instead of football, how about band, or instead of soccer, maybe we do choir, so they were very encouraging in other directions, but they never looked at me and said, no, you're sick, you can't do that. So I really appreciated that. And it really set me up for, a lot of success. Honestly, I think I attribute a lot of my success today with that, instilling that attitude when I was a little kid, that you're not sick. You just can't do every single thing that everybody else gets to do. You might not be able to play football, but really you can do anything else you want.
And how many people play football?
Well, a lot, but I mean, professionally, not that many, but I mean, there's a ton of kids that I knew that played football, but I went to the games. We even played. I mean, I was in band, so I was at the games playing in the marching band, but I was never on the field with the pads and the helmet. So
Yeah, but population wise, I mean, not every, there's other alternatives. I like that your
yeah,
family was able to find alternatives that you could do instead of. I mean,
yeah, for
so
sure.
that you could be in the band, you could be in plays, you can,
Right.
I mean, you
Yeah,
can instruments. I mean, I think all children should learn musical instruments, but that's,
I
yeah,
totally agree.
right.
Super valuable skill.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Even if you want, I mean, you're not going to be maybe become be in a philharmonic orchestra, but but why not? Okay. But your parents found alternatives for you to become active.
I did honestly. Now you say that I never got famous, but I did right after about 6 months after high school. I did get to travel the world with a singing group. So I was on tour for a year, singing almost every day. I think I figured out I averaged about 5 hours of singing a day during that year, and we got to travel all over the U.S. and several countries in Europe, and we were gone for a whole year. It was great. So no, I didn't get famous, but we got to perform at the Olympics. We got to go over to Europe. We got to be. I mean, it was fantastic. So
What
we
wonderful memories.
right? Yeah,
I mean, and not everybody can say they've been to the Olympics.
exactly. It's kind of fun. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
good.
but you didn't go as participating in the games, but you still participated in the
Right?
Olympics.
Exactly. Very cool stuff.
Yeah. So I love the alternative of it, but but people didn't know just by looking at you that you had a medical condition.
Never. Nope. And I hardly ever told anybody about it when I was a kid because it didn't matter. Because I functioned like a normal kid. I was just like any other kid. So I never really talked about it. And so when fun fact, I met my wife when we were in seventh grade. I met her in seventh grade band class. And so in seventh grade, my last surgery I had was way in the rearview mirror. I mean, it was 6 months old, right? So I was just rolling right along. And we met and just kind of hung out and, and dated and broke up and dated and went to homecoming and whatever. Ended up getting married when we were 22, and that 25 years later, here we are. But she never really knew anything about my condition until we were married about 15 years, because that's when everything started. We started having more surgery. I started having more surgeries, but she had no idea because I never had to talk about it, because it was just kind of a non-issue. So, which I'm very thankful for, actually.
So did you go on to college, university? Did you do any of that?
Eh, a little bit. I did go to college for a couple of years and realized it wasn't really for me. It's not for everybody. And
No.
so my wife definitely, she graduated with a degree, and she, all that. And but I never did. I left after a couple of years and just kind of hit the workforce, and and then we got married a couple of years later, and yeah. So I was never really, I don't know, it just never really appealed to me. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't have a major that I was excited about. So I figured, why stick around if I'm not, if I didn't know what I was going to do. I don't want to waste the money.
That
So,
that that happens to a lot of people.
oh,
They
way
get
too many. Yeah,
Yeah, and they get out and you find your way in the world.
exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay. And I know you have found your way as being a TV host,
Yeah.
podcast. I'm sure you must do some podcasting.
I have been on many, 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 many other people's podcasts. I do not personally have one myself, but that's one thing that's on the list, though. I would love to simulcast our TV show on a podcast platform as well. I just haven't prioritized that yet, but I would love to do something like that on
Like
on
me,
radio or on a podcast or something. Yeah,
like me, we can research that together.
there you go. There you
Yeah.
go.
Okay. So right now we're going to stop for a quick break. We're going to hear from Arash, and Arash and I are going to talk about scamming and hacking. We will be right back. Arash,
Thank you for having me again.
we started talking about passwords last week, so let's talk more about them in detail, okay?
Sure.
Because I was talking and saying I have some sites that I go into because I deal a lot with insurance companies and things, and I see that they're growing.
Right.
I have one insurance company that you're not allowed to use any word in any dictionary,
Yep.
and I'm always trying to come up with stuff, and every 6 weeks it has to be changed.
Changed, correct. That is correct.
And sometimes it becomes overwhelming.
That is true. It's going to be very hard. So technically, that's why we talked about password management. I don't want to promote any of them, but I use LastPass. There are Keeper, 1Password, Google, all those have the password management. And if you ask the password management to create a password for you, those app will create a new password with letter, symbol, and all those combinations, and they're not in the dictionary. And as you said, it's going to be longer and longer. So it's going to be 10 to 12 characters right now, maybe 15 for some, it's like for insurance companies, bank accounts, sometimes they want it more.
And these different places all want different things.
Definitely. What you brought is a very good subject last week. Bank account, if you want to generate a password, if you put your first name or last name in your password, they won't allow you. They recognize
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, they recognize that. They won't allow you. If you put your birthday, they won't allow you as well. So they want you to create something that's not very common with you. We were talking about pattern for password last time, which is very good. So if you have a pattern that if you only know, for example, employee ID, some address of your childhood, something that you only know that, and then you just combine it together. That's a good idea as well. But now we talked about password. We briefly talked about what if something happened to me tomorrow. But we know trust and will were there for a long time. I think it's time to have a system for your passwords, for the loved ones, for the immediate family.
I'm absolutely.
Exactly, because if something happened to me, most of our things that we have, especially the younger generation, everything is online. They don't have any document on paper. There's paperless. So to access those digital items, you need a system. Your banks, stocks, crypto, houses, everything. Will, trust, everyone, lots of people I know, including me, keep them in a safe cloud storage. So if something happened to me and my wife or my kids don't have access, my parents, brother, whoever, sister, whoever is supposed to have access, don't have anything about it, it's going to be a very hard time. It's like we have a house and no one has the key except us. So it's very hard for them. They have to break the door. They have to do many things. Sometimes they can get into some safe boxes. Sometimes they can't. So it's better to just write some instruction about what we have for the loved ones. This is the way that you can access. This is our, for example, stocks in this account. This is our bank account.
So if you have a will and trust, I would be keeping that information with the will and trust.
That's a great idea, but some stuff you cannot put it on your will and trust yet. But you can have a system. For example, as you said, you can have a notebook that you put it on a safe box with instructions. Or you can have a password management with instruction that share with your immediate family, whoever you want to share.
So that means I know for me, when I go into my computer, I got to have a password to even get into my computer.
So
somebody needs to have that in order to.
And then that needs to be
access.
Very secure. One quick thing about passwords that we talked about, I just want to jump to it. Do not save your passwords on Google Chrome or Edge. I've been repeating this many times because that's very easy to hack. Use a password management system. Google has its own password management, but if you save it on Chrome, as soon as someone finds your computer password, they can easily get those passwords exported from Chrome or Edge. Or Safari is a different story. Apple is different.
Apple is different, but you just have to be protective of those passwords to make sure somebody that you trust or two people that you trust in case something happens to them know how to get to those passwords so they can take care of your personal business.
Very true.
Thank you, Arash.
My pleasure.
We'll see you next week.
For sure. Thank you.
Okay, bye. Thank you, Arash, for all that great information we always share. And I always say, please don't give out your social security number to anyone that calls you up on the phone or text messages you or emails you. Make sure you call and you find out who that person is before you give out any of your personal information, which includes your banking information. So I'm back here with my guest, Jeff Pearson, who is a host on Invisible Conditions and Invisible Conditions University. Earlier, we were talking about his invisible condition and how he's gotten through life with it, with all the surgeries that he's had and everything. But now what I want to talk about is, what is your show? How did you come about doing your show, The Invisible Condition? And how did you come up with the concept for the Invisible Condition University, which stands for ICU, which I love, okay? Okay.
Yeah, thank
Which-
you. So yeah, Invisible Condition, the TV show, I met Julianne Meyer. I guess that's her maiden name now, but I met Julianne at a business conference a couple of years ago, and we were promoting our nonprofit organization that we have, and I just somebody said, "Hey, Jeff, you've got to meet Julianne. Julianne, you've got to hear Jeff's story. This is fantastic." And honestly, I didn't think I had much of a story, because when it's your story, sometimes you just think it's just life. You just carry on, you launch and adjust, you just, you adapt, and okay, here comes another surgery. All right, sure, whatever, and when you're in it yourself, it doesn't feel like a story. But apparently, when you tell people that you've had 7 brain surgeries, they're fascinated with that sometimes and want to know more. So I talked to her a little bit and told her a little more of my story. And she said, I think we could let's talk about a TV show maybe revolving around something like that. And we kind of brainstormed a little bit, because we knew we didn't want to make it the hydrocephalus hour, because that's a little narrow. And we knew we probably wouldn't keep an audience for long just talking about one condition. So we brainstormed a little more and ended up coming up with the show title of Invisible Condition. And our tagline is, it's not all in your head. Because sometimes when you have a condition that you can't see from the outside, it can really start to feel like you're a hypochondriac, right? Like, if, and you can feel like, oh my gosh, is it really in my head? Or is this real thing? And so we launched the show on April 4th of 2023 and started having guests on. I usually just have one guest, sometimes 2 for each show. And it's a 1-hour show. And we talk about people that are living and yet thriving in life, despite having some sort of medical condition that is not obvious from the outside, right? That it's invisible. Like, for instance, you would never look at me walking down the street and be able to point at me and go, obviously by his appearance, I can tell that he has hydrocephalus. Never. No way. So, and there's so many conditions out there like that. And so we wanted to shed light on all these amazing stories from people that have had incredible lives despite having some sort of invisible condition, and they've accomplished so much in spite of that condition. And so we want to, and then also organizations, nonprofits and other companies from around the world that are helping that community thrive and live better lives. So a year and a half later, I still feel like we're just getting started, but it's been an amazing year and a half of doing the show. And that's kind of where Invisible Condition University came from. So we got done, after about a year, almost a year and a half of the show, we looked back and said, holy smokes, we have such a list of resources here. We've had so many amazing companies and people and organizations on the show that could help others. And so we said, and not to mention my School of Hard Knocks over the last 10 years of 4 brain surgeries and 2 other surgeries that we've had to, my wife and I've had kind of had to fight through and say, okay, this is the problem. How do we fix it? And so between all those things, we have amassed a huge library of resources, and I wanted to share it. So we we decided to call it Invisible Condition University, ICU for short. And I'm not lost on the irony of that. Yes, the ICU is usually a bad thing, right? Everybody says, oh, you're in the ICU. Oh, I'm sorry. We want ICU to be a good thing. So we called Invisible. So that's Invisible Condition University, ICU. And it kind of is a dual meaning. It's also, I see you. Because a lot of times with conditions, especially in the hospital, you know, and once you leave the hospitals too, it's almost like they forget your name, you know? And so we want to know that we see you and we value you and you do have a voice and you do have a community. And it's Invisible Condition University. And so it honestly, it's a community I wish we would have had 10 years ago when I started having all these surgeries.
You're saying this, you're saying all this, and I'm going, wow. I mean, this is like, it's a support system, because if
Yes.
I'm walking down the street, or I'm doing this show, or I'm meeting with a client over
Mhm.
insurance, okay, and they have no idea that I have a learning disability.
Right?
And I'm not
Yeah.
going to walk up to them and say, hi, I'm Janice.
Right. It's not, that's not part of my personal introduction either. Hi,
Yeah.
I'm Jeff and I've had 7 brain surgeries. How are you? No, never.
Yeah, no, I'm not going up and say, hi, I'm Janice, I have ADD,
Right.
okay?
Yeah. No.
But
No. Why would you? Right?
I mean,
So yeah, exactly. Yeah.
or you have an emotional condition. I mean, there's other medical conditions besides
Sure.
that are hidden.
Sure,
You
sure,
don't
sure.
know. I mean, one of my favorite, and I have to bring it out, is people who have diabetes and somebody pushes food on them. And it's like, that's another whole subject. Okay. But
Yeah.
that to me is a hidden condition and people not understanding. Okay.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
And having people understand, like earlier in our show, I mixed up the dates. I put the
Right.
wrong month in, which is
Hmm.
part of my learning disability.
Hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
easy to do. But I think it's real important that you're providing people with resources, which I
Yes.
want to call support.
Yeah. I mean, so just to give you a little idea of where Invisible Condition, I mean, Invisible Condition University, like I said, it's something that we wish we would have had 10 years ago. Like my wife didn't have a clue what she had coming, you know, and when, you know, I had a emergency surgery in 2013 and then two emergency brain surgeries in 2014 and then another brain surgery in 2018 and then another emergency surgery in 21 and then another one in 22, and she didn't know this was coming. It totally caught her by surprise and she didn't know what to do. And so Invisible Condition University is kind of geared toward that crowd. If we wanted to provide a place where people like us, maybe like you, I don't know, if you're part of that community, would find a community that listens, that actually cares, you know, that walks with you through what you're going through, no matter what it is. And so we invite everybody, you know, anybody that wants to come on and talk. You know, we'll meet twice a month. And as you can see behind me, I have my little board here. It's kind of little subliminal advertising here. So our next call is October 1st, which is a Tuesday. It's the first and third Tuesday of every month at 3 p.m. Mountain Time. And don't worry, if you miss the live call, we'll record them all so you can go back and look. But really, it's for patients and their caregivers, or maybe their relatives, maybe their parents, or whoever's taking care of them and helping with their care, to come and ask questions or vent frustrations. You know, there's a few of those in the medical community, or find information that's maybe not provided by their medical provider. I know sometimes stuff gets left out. So if anybody is interested in being a part of it, because you're seeing me on this show, I'm going to give you a special link, and it's myfreegiftfromjeff.com. myfreegiftfromjeff.com. And if you go to that website, you'll get your first 30 days. It's not expensive. We only charge $17 a month to be part of the community. But if you go to that website, you'll get your first 30 days for free. and then, you'll pick up after that. But, and we want people to come back month after month, week after week, because you will learn something every time. With the people that are there, there's just so much information.
So one of the things I want to clarify, you're dealing with people that are working with it, what your condition is?
Any condition. It's
Any
any
condition.
condition,
So
just
like,
like our TV show. We don't limit our TV show to just hydrocephalus. We don't limit our community to just hydrocephalus. Anybody dealing with any medical issue, come to ICU.
okay, so I would say I'm a parent, okay?
Yes.
All right. And my child has learning disabilities, and there's
Yep.
several different forms of learning disabilities that they can come on this show, and you're going to find them a community that understands what they're going through.
ICU is the community. You
ICU
come
is
to Invisible Condition University, you come to one of our calls, and we'll talk to you and let you, kind of explain what's going on and ask your questions, and maybe we'll have a resource up our sleeve that we've talked to on the show in the past, or that we learned about through our battle with all my surgeries, and we can help you and point you in the direction of a resource. Yeah.
Well, also, people coming on can help with resources too.
That's
They
where we've gotten all those resources.
I
Yeah,
do a
exactly.
resource. I mean,
Yeah.
this is like since the beginning of the year, I've been on these meetings with Jeff, and then he finally said something that connected with me.
Yep. Exactly. See, it helps to come back. That's a good, thank you. That you prove my point. So join the community and come every couple of weeks. Every time you come back, you'll probably meet new people, and you'll probably learn something that you didn't learn before, and it might be beneficial for you. You never know.
And
So
I know as an adult with learning disabilities that sometimes you feel like you're out there on your own.
right.
But
Yeah.
what I've learned, I don't hide the fact that I have learning disabilities. Okay.
Sure. Sure.
So I talk about it because I'm not ashamed of it.
Mhm.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it's nice to know that there's other places to go, even if it's emotional.
Yes.
It's a good place to go. And even if you're just listening, you may pick up a resource that you didn't think about.
Well,
Or, or
and my wife and I will both be on these calls. So my wife Catherine, it has been my amazing caregiver for the last 10 or 11 years through all these crazy surgeries and through all the crazy after effects and all the whatever that we've had to encounter afterwards, and sort through all this stuff. And so she will be on every one of those calls, and she has been. She and I are on there together. And so if you have questions from a patient perspective, I'm your guy. And if you have questions from a caregiver perspective, she's your girl. There you go. And we work together. So yep.
I'm coming to the end of our show today. Thank you
Yes.
very much for being on the show today, Jeff. We have so much. Again, I want to have you back on the show
Sure.
along with Catherine, so we can look at the caretaking part of this and to see how you're
Yeah.
growing and how we can help you continue to grow.
If you go to that TikTok page, it's kind of, we do that two perspective thing. Me as the patient, her's the caregiver. So that's why we launched that too. So it's another resource. So yeah,
Okay.
love it. Thank you so much, Janice. Appreciate the
Thank you
opportunity.
so much for being on, everybody. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Thursday at 2 o'clock Pacific time. Thank you. Bye.